development. And learning is a model for education. One can change the individual, and through the experiences that one gains through one's life, that too through educational setting, we can say that the individuals try to gain maturity throughout their life. And we know that the individuals have different experiences, they have different heredity, and therefore there is bound to be differences in the individuals. We know that there are certain slow learners who learn slowly, whereas some learners are fast enough and they learn fast enough and they cope well. Now, we know when we consider the physical aspects, the individuals differ in their size, shape, color, appearance, speed of reaction, and also other innumerable aspects by which their personality is made up. We know that the concept of individual differences is in the psychology. We know that some learn quickly, some learn slowly, and we know that the variations or deviations are because of the particular mental ability or knowledge or habits or personality which they may have inculcated throughout their life, and also due to the hereditary differences. We know that a person may also differ from one person to another. That is known as the inter-individual differences. For example, people differ in their attitude, aptitudes, aspirations, creativity, personality, and emotions. And also certain people may have some good social skills while some may lack the social skills. And also we see the differences between individuals based on their gender, age, and also their background and also their anxiety levels. Regarding the differences within an individual, we know that the individuals differ in their behavior during certain periods, and also performance may also vary in different circumstances. This is because a person, when prone to certain anxious conditions, may act in a particular way compared to a person who is not prone to anxiety. Therefore, a person's performance may vary in different circumstances. This shows that emotional stability is also required in individuals, and the coolness or the calmness or the emotional balance in one situation may help the individual to overcome certain reduces that are seen in the environment and try to cope well. So attention efforts are a good example of intra-individual differences. The differences between individuals are inter-individual differences, and the differences that are exhibited by an individual during different circumstances is known as the intra-individual differences. Also, we know that the physical, mental, and temperamental traits can also be observed, but also we can see that there are acquired type of emotions or social or cultural backgrounds that can actually influence a person's personality. And there are also that certain education and emotional traits that are followed, that are developed as a result of the interaction with the environment. Now, what are the different areas of individual differences? We can see individuals differing in their physical appearance and also their intelligence. We know that some people who have more intelligence are have actually the IQ, say about 120, whereas the individuals having less than 40 are considered dumb or somewhat idiotic in their behavior. Now, Terman has classified these individuals into different types based on their levels of intelligence. That is, people can be classified as genius, near genius, very superior, superior, average, backward, feeble-minded, dull, and also idiots. Now, we know that the aptitude is another thing which determines a person's personality. The thing is an individual's ability, that is to speak a language or teaching or providing some music or being skilled in games or drawing. All these mean that they have aptitudes in relation to music, poetry, mechanisms, mechanical aptitudes, etc. Now, attitudes are different. Attitudes are they are different from person to person, and we have attitudes towards persons, situations, or a particular customs, organizations, traditions, etc. While some people have more positive attitudes towards certain things, other people may not be having certain positive attitudes, or they may be having some negative attitudes. So attitude is a thing which is cultured. It's a cultured trait. Now, personality is something. Personality is the total concept of an individual where all their aspects come into focus. Now we know that some persons have more emotionally stable. Sometimes some people lose their emotional control easily. Some people are sociable, some are not. And also, we have different types of personalities. Jung has classified the persons or based on their personality into introverts and extroverts and ambiverts. Introverts are those who are involved only with themselves. Extroverts are able to deal with social relationships. They're more jovial. And ambiverts are persons who are more balanced. Thorndike has also classified people into four categories based on their thinking, that is, abstract thinkers, ideational thinkers, object thinkers, and thinkers in whom sensory experience is the predominant. Learning also is different in different persons. Some people are good at learning, some people are not. Some people are able to concept different or difficult concepts very easily. Some people have low memory and some have good memory. And also some people are more creative and some are less creative. So individual differences also exist with regard to the learning aspect. And achievement is something different. When we conduct the achievement test, we find that the individuals differ. They are differ in their reading ability, their writing ability, and also their mathematical ability. Now, these achievement results are also visible in their levels of intelligence. Now we know that the experiences, interests, and educational backgrounds, all these contribute to the achievement levels. Compared to the other aspect, there are something called as a motor ability. Some individuals are good at motor skills, while some are not. Some people have difficulty in performing tasks. Also, the interests based on the family background or the sex or what we call some supportive systems that they have and the level of development, the race one is born in, and the nationality, also the interests also vary. There's a cultural background for people having interests. The emotional differences are something else. Some people get angry very soon, some are having some show fear, whereas some people do not get angry easily, they are calm, and some are prepared for emotional balance, while some are not. Some people, if they are emotionally unstable, may even go for to the extent of harming others, and these can also result sometimes in murderous attitudes or something like that. Also, we know that the differences are generally seen between men and women. When we talk about the individual differences, we know that there are certain characteristics that are special to their gender based on the biological background or the social background in which they are nurtured. And generally, the differences seen between men and women are women have greater skill in memory compared to men. Also, handwriting skills or skills for arts are more in women, and men are seen to excel in mathematics and logic. Women are superior to men in languages, as I was saying earlier, and also men are superior in physics and chemistry. Women are better in mirror drawing, whereas faults of speech are seen more in men than in women. Women are susceptible to suggestion three times more, and also there are many colorblind men than compared to women. And this is because of the hereditary aspect. Young girls take interest in stories which are romantic, fairy tales, and other things, whereas men are interested in games, sports, wars, bravery, science, the stories and games of occupation and skill. Now, also, we know that what are the determinants of individual differences? We know, as I was saying, that heredity is one aspect. The environment or the social circumstances in which these individuals are tended to be is another aspect. And also the gender differences and the family education, all these contribute to the individual differences. Now, when we consider the aspect of intelligence, we know that a person's abilities, competencies, and skills are dependent on his intellectuality. An individual's creativity is also dependent on his intelligence. A person's adjustment ability, sociability, achievement all depend on his intelligence. Now, we know a person is able to successfully deal with his circumstances. It is known as intelligence. Intelligence is the capacity to learn quickly and understand perfectly, think logically and rationally, and come to certain decisions. Now, it's an ability to solve the problems and show critical thinking even in complex situations. It's the ability to adapt to daily circumstances in life. According to uh, James W., intelligence is an individual's ability to adjust with the new situations. Now, this is a capacity to think rationally, to act purposefully, and to deal effectively with the environment. Now, Piaget says intelligence is the ability of the individual to adjust with his both physical and social surroundings. Now, when we talk about the intelligence quotient, known as IQ, this is determined by mental age by chronological age into 100. Now, normally the intelligence ranges between 90 to 100 IQ points, but then if people having more intelligence, more than say 140 or 150 are considered genius, whereas persons, as I was saying earlier, with less than 60 or 40 are known as imbeciles or idiots. Aptitude is another human productive potential because aptitude is a combination of characteristics such as knowledge, skills, and a set of organized responses. Now, a mental and a neural state of readiness or a learned dynamic trait is the aptitude. It is the basic unit of motivation. It is a condition or a set of characteristics symptomatic of an individual's ability to acquire with training some usually knowledge, skill, or set of responses, such as the ability to speak a language or produce music or have some special mechanical ability, etc. Now, this aptitude tells about the individual's potentiality in the future. Now, Jones says it is a measure of the probability of success of an individual with training in a certain type of situation. Now, interests. Interests are a person has an interest to do something. It is an end and means to learn. Interest talks about the motivating force that impels a particular individual to attend to a particular circumstance, a thing, or an activity. Now, if a person likes something, is interested in something, he's more capable of doing those things and achieving those things. Whereas a person who is disinterested in a thing may actually not be able to be successful in a particular thing. Bingham says an interest is a tendency to get absorbed in an experience and to continue in that particular experience. Now, interests are conditioned stimuli. Now, there are aspects of certain personality development shaped by both heredity as well as environmental factors. Interests are never permanently fixed. They may continue to change. And individual interests are different the individuals have different interests in different things. Even in the, say, right from the preschool years. Sometimes interests are unique to an individual. We can see the interest, if the people are interested in something, they may pursue a particular activity or an object or a particular thing in the environment. Now, values also are different from the individuals. Values are the standards of competence and morality. They are relatively permanent. They are more central to the case of a person. They may be learned from different sources. They are actually the thoughts about objects, persons, or behaviors, and they may differ from culture to culture. And the values, they actually try to integrate the social relations. So a value is a belief that something is good and desirable, and a person tries to achieve the value system across a period of time. And the sources of values are established directly at your childhood with our parents, teachers, friends, and also others. Also from books, print media, and other social media, we can also try to get certain values. Religion, history, books are important things that can help an individual to achieve values. And besides this, we have the personal values, moral values, and aesthetic values, which the aesthetic values actually help us to appreciate an art or work, whereas the moral values help us to determine what is right and what is wrong. And the personal values are the values which we consider close to us ourselves, that is like family, education, religion, etc. Now, compared to the other aspects of individual differences or how individuals differ from each other, academic achievement is one other aspect. We know that the persons who are good at academics are considered valuable. But then, how is this academic achievement is different from individuals to individuals? This is because the attitude of the student and also those of the family may help actually the students to get motivated to achieve individually something good in the educational background. Also, the skills and the abilities of the individuals or the students and the support they receive from the social circumstances also help the individual to make them achieve more. We know that achievement leads to achievement, and sometimes it is the individual achievement in early stages that helps them or propels them to get more education, and more individual achievement. Now, what are the implications of the individual differences? We have seen that the individuals differ in their interests, aptitudes, educational achievement, and also their personalities. And with all these differences, gender and also age, now because the individuals are varying across their different phases of life and different spans of life, we know that the individuals have certain potentiality to get something throughout their life, and it is this individual achievement which is making the individuals fare better or not fare better. Now, these individual differences are a matter of fact of reality, and they help the individuals to know themselves, to understand their capabilities, and also see the programs which suit to them and choose certain careers which they are good at, understand their own abilities. And also, the aim of education as such is to see that the individual reaches his highest potential, and also the methods of teaching and learning are somewhat suitable to the individual. Now, whatever the curricular, extracurricular activities the organization plans to do or the individual tries to adopt to, now all these are actually determined by the fact that individual differences do exist. Now, teacher uses certain teaching methods specially to cater to individual differences. It is not possible in a classroom to cater to all the individuals who may vary in all their abilities, educational background, but to have an understanding of all these aspects helps the curriculum maker or teacher to understand that the individual differences do exist, and the lesson should be planned in such a way, or the teaching must be done in such a way that the individual is able to cope up as well as find success and also be a potential human being. Now, we know that when I was talking about individual differences, there are people with certain special needs. For example, we know that in reading or writing or understanding abilities, some children may be backward. Now, these are called children with special needs or exceptional children or handicapped children. Now, these handicapped or disabled children are markedly different from the normal children. Their characteristics are they may be somewhat emotionally developed less or sometimes more. Their differences may be in both emotional level, at intellectual level, and physical level or societal level. They may require special environment in which they can develop. The special environment can be provided both in the normal school system, provided their need is somewhat normal. But if they have special need, then they must have special schools. They need more care than the normal children, and their education is also more expensive. Now, when we consider the children with special needs, we know that they are physically handicapped children. They may have either locomotor disabilities or multiple disabilities or sensory disabilities that may be actually dealing with vision, hearing, or even dumbness. There are certain mental and intelligent deficiencies. Sometimes we find that certain intellectual individuals are intellectually superior. They may be gifted or genius persons or creative people, but at the same time, you find at the other end of the spectrum that there are also mentally challenged persons who may be having mild to moderate sort of disability. Sometimes the disability may be severe or most profound. There are also other deficiencies where the children may be shy or socially disadvantaged. They may be delinquents, that is, they may be dealing with certain crime or other things. Sometimes they are deviants, and sometimes we find that there are emotionally disturbed children and also learning disabled children. Now, special education is carried out of the regular school system. It may be run by special schools. The curriculum may be flexible actually to meet these individual needs. The timetable and examinations are specifically suitably designed to meet their needs. Here, the child's education system is somewhat child-centric. And we know that meaningful, learningful activities are given to the children, and they are able to act in the less restrictive environments. And day-to-day activities are given much priority because these special needs children require the ability to deal with day-to-day activities, and they should have the ability to manage by themselves. So parents of the children are taken support of. The teachers take the parent support. And with well-trained teachers, administrators, curriculum, and also the physiotherapists involved to a certain extent, they can try to overcome the needs of the special children and make them properly trained. And when we come to the concept of mental retardation or intellectual disability, we know these individuals have less IQ and they have difficulty in coping with the realities of the life. We know that these mental conditions, we know that these mental conditions are have to be taken care of because the individual capacities do vary. And we know that the interests and values are also especially different in all these individuals. Now, when we come to the concept of the mental retardation, we know that the mental retardation is due to the chromosomal disturbances. And when we call about mental retardation, we know that the IQ point is somewhat less. The lack of concentration and memory problems are seen in those individuals. There are low intellectual abilities and grasping powers in these individuals. And we know that they are actually late in either learning things and even in the physical abilities too. And they have actually have difficulty in trouble while talking. They are slow to master things. They have difficulty in dressing and feeding themselves and difficulty in remembering things. And they have the inability to do activities and they have behavioral problems too. And we consider the mental retardation or intellectual disabilities. We know that there are mild to moderate to severe mental retardation problems. These people have problems in reading, writing, and they take longer time to talk. But sometimes they have difficulty in communicating also, and they are fully somewhat in. They are not fully independent, or they cannot take care of themselves. They have increased difficulty with taking responsibility, and also they have certain problems with regard to how they make themselves understood or with language, and also they have certain problems with uh, their going to the familiar places or trying to locate the places, etc. Now, when they have severe mental retardation, we know that there is somewhat nervous impairment, mental impairment, and also the central nervous system does not function properly. They cannot communicate with others, and they have problem taking care of their own selves. And when it is actually much profound sort of mental retardation, we know that they have difficulty in complying to tasks or trying to understand the messages, and they cannot take care of their needs independently, and they have very less basic non-verbal communication. They're needing of constant help, and they're not able to move or have mobility, and they cannot wear their own dresses or eat their own food. They cannot take care of themselves at all. So when we consider all these sort of different people who are there in mental retardations, individual help that is required by them may differ. And we have, of course, the natural mental health policy and the national policy of mental handicapped. And we have the National Institute of Mentally Handicapped Person, which tries to give training for the persons who are actually take care of these people. And we know that also the families also should be trained enough to take care of these children. When we come to the hearing impairment, we know that these persons have emotional issues, they have peer-to-peer relationships, they cannot understand, and they have difficulty in articulation and oral experiences. They have difficulty in following verbal directions. They have difficulties in social interaction and also in maintaining interpersonal skills. They often have a problem in language. They get easily frustrated, and sometimes they can use the hearing aids to actually overcome the embarrassment. But sometimes they feel that using the hearing aids also may cause them embarrassment. Now, what are the causes of hearing impairment? This is because certain brain diseases may affect the central nervous system in the early stages of infancy, and also sometimes it may be maternal, and especially if the mother has certain viral infections like measles or mumps or Meniere's disease, we can see that the hearing and balance is also affected in the child when it is born. We know that there is differences based on the hearing. It may be mild or moderate, or sometimes there may be hearing profound hearing loss, and this can lead to lots of problems. We can see that there is a sensory motor hearing loss. Sometimes there is a mixed hearing loss. Sometimes central hearing loss is seen. The different stages of hearing loss may actually can be overcome by usage of certain hearing aids or auxiliary training or lip reading. But then we know these individuals have problem in communication, and they may feel somewhat less self-confident with themselves. Coming to the concept of the speech impairment, we know that sometimes the dumbness may be associated with the hearing impairment, but sometimes it is only the speech impairment that is seen. Here we see that the improper use of words and their meanings is seen. They have an inability to express their own ideas, and they have inappropriate grammatical patterns. They have reduced vocabulary, and they have inability to follow directions. They have problems with voice quality, and also they may find that their mispronunciation can actually cause problems in making others understand what they are saying. And there may be again different types of disorders. There may be articulation disorders, there may be psychological disorders where they are unable to convert their thoughts into words, and they may also have disfluency, or they may have voice disorders. Now, all these disorders have such particular ways of overcoming them, and with proper training, one can overcome all these. So in summary, you can say that all the individuals with special needs require certain special addressing of their problems. And we know that taking care of these issues is dependent on the trainers as well as the parents, and special sort of trainers are required actually. And how we take care of them comes under the inclusive education. Inclusive education is one such where these individuals are made to learn or gain experiences and are able to cope with their own life later in their own way. And this requires training. And this training may come, or education may come, both in normal schools as well as special schools. If the hearing impairment or the speech disorders or any mental disorders are of the low quality, or if they are having lower levels of such impairments, then they can be trained in the normal schools. If not, they may be required to attend the special schools. The inclusive education tries to take all these individuals into the normal classroom so that they can adjust with the normal classroom environment, which also may help them to actually get well in the society which they may later live in. When we consider the inclusive education, we know that we are trying to welcome diversity. We are trying to benefit the learners, and the children in the school may not feel too excluded, and we're providing them equal access to education. Now, inclusion does not mean it is the special reform education alone, and it is not only diversity we are trying to do, but the quality of education we are trying to improve. And we know that the inclusion is not about meeting the needs of the children with disabilities only. The child needs are not actually, if we are trying to actually address the child needs in an inclusive education, does not mean that we are trying to exclude the normal children from the, that is, when we are trying to have the inclusive education, the children with special disabilities are kept in the normal classroom, but the normal child should not suffer because of the disabled child in the classroom. So a normal classroom must try to integrate both the children, but not at the cost of the special children. When we consider talk about the background of inclusive education, there has been special conferences on the special needs education, their access and quality, and the UNESCO Convention Against Discrimination in Education. All these felt that these children must be tried to give an important role in education. They must be integrated into the society. Now, what are the key elements in the conceptualization of inclusion? Inclusion is a process. It does not happen because we think in a way, but it's a normal process which how to live with the differences that should be a part of the societal training. And normal individuals should also be trained to on how to deal with these particular special need children. Inclusion is concerned with identification and removal of all the barriers. It is also about the presence, participation, and achievement of all the students. Now, this means the inclusive education aspect has to take into consideration all these children and consider the disadvantaged and deprived children and their conditions. The goals of inclusive education is trying to include all of these children with special needs into the system or providing special provision for them. When we consider about the gender equality and inclusion, we know that the most of the female children are not given proper education. At the same time, there is also gender-based violence, child marriage, early pregnancy, or trying to make the girl child do the household chores. And there's certain discrimination in the household itself. So, when we try to overcome and make all the children be educated, or when the concept of inclusive education means that the children across the various genders also should be provided education. When we talk about health, justice, good government, and freedom from child labor, that includes even the female child. Now, the principles of inclusive education are it is not concerned only with the special needs children, but also with children who are having less educational opportunity or children who belong to the female gender or other gender or children who belong to races or tribes where they have had no recourse to education. So the principles of inclusive education means that there is diversity in people's differences and they all should be given a proper education, and all learners difficult differences, learning styles and achievements, they should be addressed properly in a normal classroom, and an individual should be helped to develop their own potential, full potential, by taking into account these individual differences, and support should be generated and fully resourced both at the classroom level and also at the family level. All learners should need friendship and support from the people and from the society. Now, the benefits of the inclusive education is it helps the individuals to communicate and appreciate and accept. Their quality of level is better. They have an increased understanding and acceptance of diversity and respect for all the people. And we know every individual differs from others in their either physical, mental, or emotional or sexual orientations, and opportunities to master activities by practicing and teaching others, and also have this gives them somewhat an academic outcome. A proper academic outcome is there, and we know that there is greater success to the individual. Now, understanding the individual differences will also help you to understand the quality of life as well as their potential to develop. Now, there are certain barriers to inclusive education. We know that there are people's attitudes or the behaviors of the individuals or the curriculum by itself, which tries to show the differences in the men or women or other sexes, and where there is no proper orientation, or all this may actually be a hindrance for inclusive education. The teachers are also must be well aware of all the differences that exist, the diversified human beings that exist in the society, and how to actually bring the diversity into the classroom and make appreciate the children, the differences between different individuals. The language and communication are other aspects where one person is not able to communicate properly, then that also comes in the way of the inclusive education. The socio-economic differences, the educational backgrounds of the parents, the funding of the organizations, and the organization of the educational systems as such, and the curriculum and the policies, the national policies, and if they're not properly framed, all these can act as barriers to the inclusive education. When we talk about quality maintenance of organizations, or when we talk about proper development of individual through a particular curriculum, we are talking about the quality maintenance, and this means the capacities of the individuals have to be properly developed, and this means the individualized training. But we know that individualized training is not possible in countries like India. Therefore, we have to see that there is an acceptable and a flexible curriculum which takes into consideration all the needs of the individuals. So we have to develop such an environment where there is a reforming school system which becomes inclusive and which actually tries to take the attitudes and values and understanding and the skills that are to be developed in resources and organizations which actually help the individuals to develop themselves. So there should be a clarity of purpose and there should be realistic goals. There should be motivation, support, and resources, and also evaluation of the policies from time to time. When we talk about the curriculum, it should be accessible to all and flexible. We know that the individual needs should be met. There should not be too much highbrow type of education. At the same time, it should try to develop the individual skills, and it should keep the individuals motivated and activated. So when we talk about the individual differences, we're also talking about different ways of assessment for the classroom. And we should know that promote the values, the human values and the child rights, and the curriculum should be relevant to the child's real lives. And we should also include the aspects of environmental education and interactive education, and also the importance of having a national assessment system also may helpful. Now, we know that there are many children in India who are lacking education, and to make them all inclusive, the government has taken certain policies. At the same time, the existing educational system and the 2030 framework for action emphasizes education for all as a conceptualization of inclusive education, and therefore it's a pledge to have no one left behind. This means everybody should be actually involved in the process of development. So we have tried to learn today about the individual differences, the basis of differences, what are the basis for the individual differences to exist, and the need for inclusive education, and how we will learn about the inclusive education. Next, we'll be considering the topic with memory. We know that there are certain educational aspects to learning. For example, when we talk about the domains of learning, we generally talk about the Bloom's taxonomy. Bloom's taxonomy is a taxonomy which tries to develop in the individuals a particular sort of learning. This taxonomy says that all the individuals learn because of certain objectives from the part of the teachers. When learning happens, there is some import or what we call imparting of knowledge from the teacher to the children. That is, the child after education comes out with a different personality from the classroom. Say a teacher teaches about for one hour with a particular purpose. Then the child after 1 hour should be able to develop certain values or knowledge because of this interaction. Now, this interaction means that the teacher enters the classroom with certain objectives. The objectives are what the child will try to learn in that particular hour. Now, the child may be learning certain things with regard to knowledge, or with regard to their feelings or emotions, or with regard to their skills. So, Benjamin Bloom is an educationist who tried to understand these aspects with regard to what the child should be evaluated later upon after his particular teaching or training. Now, Bloom says that there are different aspects or domains of learning, and these domains of learning can generally belong to three categories. One is the cognitive domain, which is relevant or which is related to knowledge, and the affective domain, which deals with emotions, and the psychomotor domain, which deals with the skills. When we talk about the cognitive domain, it means cognition or understanding. And when we talk about this cognitive domain, we can call about certain particular outcomes may be seen in this cognitive domain after the interaction with the teacher. That is, the children may either recall certain things, comprehend certain things, apply certain things, analyze or synthesize or evaluate certain things. First comes the knowledge, and then understanding or comprehension, followed by application of the knowledge, whatever they have learned, to new circumstances, and analyzing the whole process and synthesizing their knowledge and trying to make it into a consolidated form, and then also trying to evaluate the knowledge with regard to the situations they are placed in. Now, all this comes under the cognitive domain, and this is how we try to gain knowledge by trying to first learn something, understand something, and then apply something, and then evaluate. With regard to the affective domain, we know that it deals with feelings, values, appreciation, attitudes, motivation, etc. Now, the affective domain helps actually to become aware of an attitude or also gain values or show an appreciation for a value or behavior. Coming to the psychomotor domain, we know that there are sensory inputs can also be made into something like a skill. Now, this means when we learn something, first we watch and then try to imitate it and then make it a part of our particular way of dealing with things, and then we can make it as a naturalized sort of thing. So whatever standards there are there, this is because of the excellence that one achieves in a particular skill, and therefore one's performance or individual difference also varies with regard to the skill mastered. Now, when these skills are taken to the real life situations, we know that every day-to-day life, there are different skills required, and the student should be trained actually to gain these skills. And these skills may be with regard to music or with sports or motor activities or simple activities like drawing, labeling, etc. Or even sometimes having a good oratorship or trying to have good communication skills also may come under the skill training. When we consider about the Bloom's taxonomy, Anders and Krathwohl have actually revised these to say that, in simple words, it is something like remembering, understanding, applying, analyzing, evaluating, and creating. So when we try to understand these new terms, when we try to remember the previous knowledge, then we understand the concept that is being told. We apply that knowledge to particular systems, analyze what has happened in the process, and we try to evaluate whether it is good or not, and then try to create something unique out of the knowledge that comes in later parts of life. So when we talk about the dimensions and process of the revised Bloom's taxonomy, we know that there are major processes and sub-processes. For example, when we consider knowledge, we know that it is considered with both recognizing and recalling. And with the understanding, it happens with interpreting, exemplifying, classifying, summarizing, and also inferring, comparing, and explaining. All these processes come under the dimension understanding. And when we apply, we either execute something or implement something. And when we analyze, we try to differentiate, organize, and attribute something. And when we evaluate, we check our own answers, and also we try to critique something. That is, we try to evaluate the good and bad out of a particular thing. And when we create something, we are generating something, or we are trying to plan something or produce something out of the knowledge you have gained. And from the creative aspects come either products or processes that are innovative. Now, when we talk about these dimensions, we know that these objectives are framed with regard to the learner's needs and how they actually are relevant to a particular classroom setting. So these objectives actually help the intended outcomes that the teacher wants to develop in the students. And we know that the classroom has to be actually consists of various types of learners, and the teacher has to have this broad educational what you call dimensions in mind when he actually enters the classroom and tries to achieve or tries to make it a fruitful process in which the students achieve something with regard to learning. And therefore, we can say Bloom's taxonomy helps and makes it possible for the teacher to enter the classroom with certain educational objectives. At the same time, they must be what we call they must be syncretic, or they must go in hand with both the individual differences. So objectives on one hand and individual difference on other hand. And when a classroom or a curriculum plans to actually take the individuals into consideration, or when we talk about the child-centric education, we are taking both the educational objectives as well as the learner's needs into cognizance. So here we'll stop before we go into the types of learning in the next classroom. Thank you.